Hello and welcome to another wonderful episode of Eye on Port. This program is proudly brought to you by Serene Insurance, Gold Company Limited, the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, and Ghana Link, who are the operators of the Integrated Customs Management System. Our proud media partner is the Business and Financial Times. Now, this week we are discussing the rules of origin under the African Continental Free Trade Area. But before we delve into the main discussion, the President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, announced that the benchmark policy, which was supposed to be reviewed, should be suspended. And we sought to find out from Guta what their position on the President's directive is.
We are very grateful to the President for listening to the pleas of the trading community. So we are happy and we are opening up for a fruitful stakeholder engagement. We are going to be very objective and positive, and we will think about our nation. So we do something that will benefit the nation at large. The government, the AGI will have will have to be compensated. UTA or the trading community will have to be compensated, and as well as the consuming public. So this is the mindset that will be going to the stakeholder engagement. But we believe that we have to reach a positive consensus before thinking about any implementation of the sort. So we take advantage to ask GRA to withdraw his earlier circular that was going wrong, indicating that they have deferred the implementation to 17th. It goes contrary to the direction of the President. What the President has said that we should do stakeholder engagement so that when we conclude and we have built consensus, then we can see to it the issue of the benchmark.
All right, so Doc, you are going into these consultations with an already entrenched position, and your position is that there should be no reversal of the benchmark values because you think that it's helping the generality of the people, and you in particular, the traders. How do you see yourself fitting into these discussions?
I think before I started talking, I said that we are going to be very objective. We are not going to take any entrenched position. We have to be Ghanaians, and we have to be patriotic. We don't need, AGI doesn't have to be entrenched in its position, neither do we also have to be entrenched on our positions, and government also need not to be entrenched. We have to have open discussion and fund, and that's what we set ourselves to do. That's where the Ghanaian public will have confidence in us. So we are not just going to be nuisance on the nation.
So still staying with the President's directive to the GRA to suspend the review of the benchmark policy, our guests in the studio, Apia Kusi Odomako and Dodi Seidu, had this to say on the subject.
Well, I think from my perspective as an international trade person, I think it is welcome news that there is some more opportunity for more stakeholder engagement. We have at least two major schools of thought. Yeah. One group wanting there to be an increase in the benchmark values with the view that that would enable them to, produce, manufacture, and meet, market requirements, or take advantage of the market opportunity. And one group that wouldn't want it to be so because, it will keep prices at a certain level. So for me, consultation is a very good thing. Let's do it. And like you asked during the interview, there shouldn't be entrenched positions. We should look at the interest of the country. We should look at the objective one to, improve revenue from trade, but at the same time also facilitate trade.
Mr. Adomako, your take on benchmark values?
I think it's a very difficult decision for government, but I think that in the interest of Ghana, we cannot continue to dump our country with imported goods It's a short-term pain that we have to go through. But for me, if you ask me, I think that between importation and exportation, importation, domestic production, I'll go for domestic production. So I stand with AGI and the local manufacturers, and this is the way that will build a country. No country has ever developed with, unlimited access to imported goods at a lower tariffs. When you do so, you kill your industries, and there will be no appetite for people to invest in the manufacturing sector. Sorry, it's hard, but then, it's still the way forward as a country.
All right, so away from the benchmark value suspension to our main discussion, which has to do with the rules of origin under the African Continental Free Trade Area, our guest in the studio in the person of Apia Kusi Adomako, who is the country director for CAT International Accra, and Dodi Seidu, who is a consultant for AFCFTA for the Frontier Market Advisors, explained how the private sector can position themselves to take advantage of the rules of origin. Here is a report.
We hear that rules of origin. What is it?
Thank you very much. So we're talking about the cross-border trade of goods or products.
Right.
And when goods cross borders, the customs bodies, the customs authorities have to do classification, they have to do valuation, and to do that, they normally would ask for the geographic or economic origin of the product. And that basically means where is the product coming from in terms of the country or place where it was manufactured or where it was is being brought from. And those processes for determining the nationality of the product is what we call rules of origin. This is very important because you determine the preference that a product will get from the origin that the product or where the product is coming from. So until you know that, you cannot provide whether it's low tariff, no tariff, or higher tariff. You cannot determine that until you know the origin of the product. Now, countries create free trade areas or preferential trade areas, or they develop and agree on trade to take advantage of the opportunity that exists either within the countries or amongst themselves. So when you are creating those, or when you are signing the free trade agreements, your aim is to create the opportunity for the citizens, the industries, and the countries to benefit from that. Now, before trade agreements are signed, countries trade on, with tariffs. The tariffs are what the governments use, some governments use as revenue. Of course, in Africa, every government uses it. So for me, if I'm a country to forego the tariff, the revenue I would have taken, I need to make sure that you really prove to me that the product you're bringing into my country comes from your country. And those are generally the rules of origin. So that's just by one step back. Now, in the context of the AFCFTA, there are over 8,000 product lines that are generally traded. The idea has been to liberalize about 90% of those product lines, which is traded across the continent. And for that, as we speak now, over 87% of those product lines have been agreed. What it means is that specific rules have been agreed for determining their origin. So the remaining, let's say roughly 2.5 to 3% is what are outstanding. Some of those products are usually the everyday products that most of us use. So like sugar is outstanding. Textiles outstanding. I think automobiles as well. These are all areas that many African countries are aiming to develop strategic industries in.
So, Mr. Adamako, rules of origin, he has explained what it is, and I want to find out from you how key these rules of origin are in continental trade.
Okay. And so in international trade, as Dodi said, the rules of origin has been set to ensure that those members that are on the trading block benefit from goods that originate from their region. Because if you don't put a very strong rules of origin system in place, there will be like free ride. For example, people could import goods from China or any other country into their country, and then repackage them and then start sending them to other countries in the name of AFTA. When you do so, because the goods from non-party states, countries that are not signatories to the AFCFTA, once the goods come from, let's say, China into those countries, there will be no, once the goods arrive there and they are shipping it to other countries, there will be no tariffs on them, because we assume that the goods are moved from one African country to another African country. But when you subject the goods under the lens of the rules of origin, you then be able to know that, look, the goods are originating from a different country. When the goods came into the African country, there was no value addition, or perhaps the value addition, the only work that was done was just the labeling or the packaging. And so that goods, when you export into another African country, under the AFCFTA, it will not qualify as a product originating from Africa. And so the custom tariffs would have to be placed on it.
Let's find out whether the rules of origin have been made, simple and business friendly in our part of the world to allow for smooth, utilization, and especially after.
It is complex because it is generally, of course, in trade language to start with, and secondly, the processes or the information is quite detailed. So let me just see if I can break it down for the general public. So there are two main ways of determining origin. The first one is what we call the wholly obtained process or criteria. And the second is what we call the substantial transformation criteria. The wholly obtained criteria basically means that the product in question should, number one, be originating from one country. Two, should be naturally occurring, grown, or raised in that country. Okay. So usually this criteria applies to many natural products, many raw materials, many products originating from those raw materials. The second criteria, which is called the substantial transformation criteria, basically means that if the product is not from one country, has parts or elements from another country, then it must be either processed, manufactured, or assembled in such a way that its characteristic is altered. So in that criteria, we have 4 sub-criteria. We have what we call the value addition. So sometimes the origination is known based on the value added. So assuming we imported something, an input or the raw material from another country into Ghana, the percentage value added would be a determination. I think in the AFCFTA, it should be at least 40%. The second criteria is called the value of non-originating material. We know that you would import some non-originating materials not from your country. You can import it from several countries, but in Ghana or in any other country, put it together, manufacture, and it will become a product. So in that case, we have to look at about 60% non-originating material. Then we have another criteria, sub-criteria called, specific works. In that case, the rules of origin would say that a specific processing, a specific manufacturing approach should be applied to be able to qualify. And the last one is what we call the change in tariff heading,
Right.
where often the inputs come with different HS codes, but when you finish the manufacturing, the final output, which is most likely 1 unit, has a different HS code.
Right.
And that also, so in the context of trade, all of these are specifically listed in the HS code. I think the 2022 HS code has been released. So it is there. And then in the AFCFTA context, there's also a full rules of origin document that details all of these things. So in some cases, it will be wholly obtained. In some cases, it will be value added. It will be specific works, or it will be value of non-originated material. So the process for obtaining certificate of origin is in the ICOM system. At this point, like Mr. Appiah mentioned, it's customs authority that is mandated to implement it.
Right.
But as we speak now, there's a transition. So it's still with Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And so if you want to get your certificate of origin for your product, you would have to apply through the ICOMS. If you go to the ICOMS website, you should be able to do that application process. But basically, it involves applying for a GNCCI registration number, using that number to apply for a certificate of origin for the specific product you intend to export. So once you do the application, if there's a need, there's a committee that would like to maybe visit your production site and make sure that whatever you've claiming that the product is from Ghana is really from Ghana. And then subsequently, if they are satisfied, they will issue that. Yes, once the rules of origin has been agreed, customs have to update their systems and their schedules. So, and usually, I mean, let me say this for the private sector, there's always a lag between when government signs a document and when it becomes, an implementation document.
Right.
So that is what Mr. Appiah mentioned. We are going through that now. The training for customs is happening. Their updating of their schedules and systems is happening so that they can be able to, receive and recognize an AFCFTA certificate of origin.
Right.
It applies in both ways. If a product is coming from another African country to Ghana, Ghana's customs must be able to verify the certificate of origin. And in the same way, if a product from Ghana is going to another African country, they should be able to verify that. These are the processes that has also delayed a bit the actual trading under the AFCFTA because countries are doing all of these system changes in the background.
Well, but I just want to find out from you how the private sector should position themselves to take advantage of the rules of origin.
I think AFCFTA is about the private sector. And as we know, private sector is also the engine of growth for every economy. And with AFCFTA in place, if you want to be able to export, because you have a bigger market to export your goods duty-free, quota-free. And so once you understand the rules of origin and its dynamics, it will help you to know where to source your goods from and what kind of processes that you need to add to it to allow you to qualify as fully, to qualify to be exported without any tariffs when it gets to a party state. And this is what essentially the private sector needs to know. I know that there's going to be a national sensitization workshop for the private sector in terms of understanding the rules of origin and its implementation. Once they take the lessons seriously, I think that they will emerge as winners under the AFCFTA.
Eye on Port returns after this break.
Every now and again, Goil makes good things happen. This time, Goil has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. Gold Super XP Run 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. Gold Super XP Run 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. Gold Super XP Run 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with Gold Super XP Run 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. Goil has that sorted. Goil, good energy.
Electricity, pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is, you still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse, and my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance motor policy. Currently, my goods are on the high seas, covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor, I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance for the projects and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
Welcome back from the break, and now to some news and activities happening within the international maritime and port space. The National Ports Agency says Mohammedia Port near Casablanca will host the country's first liquefied natural gas LNG floating storage and regasification unit, FSRU. The National Ports Agency announced the update of Station C at the Mohammedia Port, which will now include an LNG terminal and an FSRU. Thus, Morocco's first LNG terminal will take place in Mohammedia. Under the National Port Master Plan for 2030, Mohammedia is to be an energy port. Another major goal is to form an alternative for Morocco to import LNG by sea. The U.S. ports and the White House are planning to introduce a new fee on long-dwelling empty containers in an effort to tackle the supply chain crisis. In particular, the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach announced a new fee on long-dwelling empty containers, building on the success of the fee imposed on long-dwelling import containers in November, said John Porcari, White House port envoy. The Port of Los Angeles plans to begin charging a fee to ocean carriers that allow empty containers to linger on the port marine terminals for 9 days or longer. The fee, subject to approval by the Los Angeles Harbor Commission, will take effect on 30th January 2022. AP Moller Maersk AS is no longer the world's largest container line. The Danish carrier has been overtaken by the Mediterranean shipping company in terms of capacity, according to data compiled and published. MSC's fleet can carry 4,284,728 standard 20-foot containers, 1,888 more than Maersk, giving both a market share of 17%. Maersk, which first entered containerized trade in 1975, has held the top spot for decades. The carrier has been a pioneer in the industry, often breaking records by building the biggest ships. More recently, it has invested in vessels that can sail on carbon-neutral methanol. It still has the most capacity in terms of owned vessels. MSC has about 65% of its capacity from chartered ships, whereas Maersk only has 42%. Now we have schedules of vessels in the port, those at anchorage and those expected in the coming week, plus the Bank of Ghana exchange rate you need to know to clear your goods from the port next. We have your comments next.
Here are some comments. This one is from Inshira from Gomoa. He says, I want to venture into production. How do I go through the after process? Hi Inshira. Our expert says, unfortunately, your question lacks enough detail. However, he said it is important to go through the internal national processes to acquire all the local licenses for production. Then you will have to be certain if your product qualifies under the rules of origin regime. To be able to export out of Ghana and enjoy the after reliefs, you will have to acquire a certificate of origin from the GNCCI and customs. This one says, please ask your guest what the level of compliance from countries under the after is. Our expert from CATS International says, compliance level is satisfactory and it is important to appreciate the gradual processes countries are taking to strengthen their manufacturing sector while creating the enabling environment for after trading. My name is Bernard Kwesiakati in Accra. How do the parties remove the non-tariff barriers in the trade? Usually this is more pervasive than the tariffs themselves. Hi Bernard, our expert shares similar concerns, citing systemic issues, lack of harmonizing working hours between border institutions, delays, etc. He says the most influential way to remove these barriers is a strong political will.
So that's all for this week's episode of Eye on Port. Thank you for watching and thanks to the entire crew. Join us same time next week.